Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Logan Fast. Thanks for being on the show, Logan.
Thanks for having me, Whitney.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to have you on, Logan. And I know I've had some other team members on that you've gotten to know pretty well. And so I'm looking forward to hearing just your experience in this business. But a little about Logan. He's a wholesaler, fix and flipper, multifamily real estate investor from Omaha, Nebraska. At age 24 years old, he has built a portfolio of multifamily properties valued over $1.3 million and successfully completed a few dozen wholesale and flip transactions. Outside of business, he enjoys traveling, snowboarding, and practicing jiu-jitsu. So, Logan, thank you for your time and being on the show. I'm looking forward to this because like you and I were discussing before the show, I feel like so many people say, "Oh, I'm too young," or "Oh, I'm so disadvantaged," right? I think was a word that you had used, because I'm so young. I look forward to getting in that conversation because I think you and I'd agree that we agree that we couldn't disagree with that more. So, but before that, tell us a little more about yourself, Logan, and let's dive into, how you made this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks again for having me, Whitney. It's awesome to be here. So I started out, I graduated college 2017, actually graduated on a Saturday, and I started work at a corporation on a Monday. So didn't have much of a break there. And, pretty much by noon on that Monday, I knew that I pretty much walked right into my nightmare, and that's something I couldn't imagine doing for, the next 40, 50 years. And, I was really unhappy there. And right around that same time, I came across the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that pretty much every real estate investor has come across, and it kind of lit a fire in me and led me to read, dozens and dozens of other books and listen to podcasts. And I really just became obsessed with real estate at that point. And come to January of 2018 was when I purchased my first property. I had just stayed in that job long enough to find that property, and so I could get the long-term financing on it. And then April of 2018, I left that job to pursue real estate full-time, and just haven't looked back since.
When did you leave your job full-time? What month was that?
It was in April of 2018.
Okay. So bought your first property in January, and April you left your job.
Yep.
Okay. So that, was that scary at all? Or was it just like, no, I got this?
It actually was very scary. And the thing is, like you had mentioned earlier, where, people see age as kind of a disadvantage. And, I kind of just use the common sense approach of, hey, I don't have a family. I don't have kids. Pretty much every other 22 to 25-year-old kid that I know is broke. So, even if I fail at this, I'm pretty much just going to be where everybody else is. So, and even knowing all that, it was scary to leave that job and just leave that security.
I love that statement right there, and I hope everybody heard that. You said even if you fail at this, you're pretty much going to be where everybody else is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so why not hit it wide open, right? So tell me about that transition though, because I would imagine, especially at 24, I don't know your home life, your family life. However, I know personally, my mom would have probably said, "Oh, wait a minute." You just went to school. You just started this job. You've paid so much. Got so much debt and tuition, all these things, right? That everybody worries about. And you're telling me, Logan, that you're going to go and quit this job to go pursue real estate. So tell me, how some of that happened.
Yeah. So actually, I didn't tell my parents ahead of time. They only found out after I'd already left that job. So.
That was probably smart.
Yeah. So I was already committed at that point, and I was already, unemployed or self-employed, I guess, at that point. But I had just, I had heard so many stories of, people making it, and, all of these. Basically, I got really into these Bigger Pockets podcasts and heard so many stories of, you know, even young people, old people, like it doesn't really matter as long as you can grind, you can make it. And, I knew enough to be able to do deals. And I really just, yeah, it's a big leap of faith, but it was definitely something that I felt I needed to do. And I would never forgive myself if I didn't take that leap. I knew if I sat in that cubicle any longer, I would have just continued to be miserable.
It's just incredible. By noon, on the first day, like you knew that this was a mistake, and really made plans to change it. And like you said, and you're still young enough that even if you failed and you said, okay, real estate's not the best thing for me, you could go back and get another W-2.
Yeah, exactly. And even if I failed at real estate 10 times and then I finally made it, that's the thing. You only need to make it once. And then you're good.
Wow. Okay. So tell me though about, your transit. How'd you have the confidence to do that? Not, most people aren't going to have that much confidence to leave their day job and, that quickly for sure. And, and at your age, all those things, that everybody say, was against you. What gave you the confidence to be able to do that? How did you know you knew what to do to be able to make it happen? Because now you got a mortgage too.
Yeah. So that property was actually doing pretty well. So it did give me some financial runway there. I knew I had at least 6 months. I could make absolutely no money, and
Nice.
I could at least survive. So
Was that a multifamily property then?
yeah, it was a threeplex.
Good for you.
Thank you. And so I knew I had a little bit of runway there, and I had been networking, ever since I discovered real estate back in May or June of 2017. So I had 6 or 7, well, probably closer to 9 months of networking with other investors. So I knew some fix and flippers in town. I knew investors that wanted to buy. So, I knew they were always looking for properties. I knew there were good deals out there, and all I had to do was connect the two. And, there's so much information on marketing, and I just felt if I had that extra time that I was spending, that 8-9 hours a day that I was spending at that corporate job, then I could really make some big things happen.
Awesome. So you knew that if you had that time, you could do more. Tell me about how that changed though. Okay. So now, you left the job, you said, okay, I've got 6 months that if I don't make any money, that I can make it. And then, if you have the extra time, you can make it something happen. Tell me, what'd you do with that time though, after you got it?
Yeah. So that's actually a hard transition. I think a lot of entrepreneurs have probably gone through this to where you're like, okay, now I have my entire day and it's a blank slate, but what should I actually do with this time to be productive, be efficient? So I think it always comes down to a mix of education and taking action. You can't really have one without the other. If you're just sitting there learning all day, not doing anything, you're not going to get results. And if you're just doing stuff, you might get results, but you might also get yourself into hot water. So you have to at least have a good base knowledge of what you're doing, and you need to have people you can turn to, in case a situation comes up. You're not going to know everything up front, but if you do have those connections and a problem comes up, it's great to have somebody you can that's just a phone call away that has dealt with it before.
Okay. So tell me about that person for you and how you found them.
Yeah. So for me, I found one of my biggest mentors, Colin Schwartz. He was actually on the show a few weeks ago, and I just met him at a real estate meetup in town that he actually hosts. And, we kind of hit it off right away and, started to build a good relationship there. And, I just thought, how can I add a ton of value to him? He's a really smart guy, really hardworking, and he was doing great things in real estate. So I'm just thinking, how can I add a ton of value to him And that kind of just came down to finding him deals. And I think that's pretty much the case in any scenario. Any experienced real estate investor is going to want more good deals. So that's when I really started to learn marketing and really started to study that. And that's been, that's pretty much been everything to me, is learning how to market and be the producer of these deals.
Okay, so we'll get to the marketing part, but I want to hear a little more about like how you added value to him. So I love how your thought process though was, how can I add value to him? You found this guy that you knew would be beneficial to really develop a relationship with. Tell me a little more about how you got to know him enough to even know how you could add value.
Yeah, I mean, ever since we started talking, we had some similar interests. I was really interested in what he was doing, because at that point he was only he owned about 25 units. And I felt like, he was really only a few steps ahead of me and not that much older. So it really felt like he wasn't that far away, and I could really learn a lot from him. And if I could learn his business, then I could help him. So it's kind of a balance of, asking him a bunch of questions and not being annoying to him. And I think that's a tough challenge that a lot of people face that are trying to find a mentor is, you don't just want to send them deal after deal. Like, hey, can you analyze this? Hey, can you look at this? Like, help me with this. You want to see if there's something you can do. And, ever since our relationship started, I told him like, hey, if there's ever any way I can add value to you, let me know. Is there anything you need in your business right now? Like, what is the biggest thing you need? And he told me it was deals. And since then I help him with random business tasks all the time, and I don't expect anything in return. But at that point it was deals. I know it's still deals, but he basically just told me.
So tell me about how that worked out then. He told you that he was needing deals. And so, because a lot of mentors or people that are further in the business, I get it all the time. People say, well, let me know how I can add value to you. Well, it's hard to just like come up with something at that moment. Right. And then it's hard to remember, that maybe that person would love to help at some point when you actually do need some help. And then you wouldn't even know that they were the right person to do that for you, So, tell me a little about that.
Yeah. So I had already sent out some marketing at that point. And so he did know I was serious. I had been spending money on marketing. So he had taken me seriously. I'd bought a property, and then I had an appointment to meet with a seller of a duplex. And I was like, hey, like, I'm not exactly sure in the area, exactly what this thing's worth. Like, do you want to come check it out with me? So he went on that appointment with me, and I was actually just looking at the dates the other day. This was July 24th. And, we go meet there, and, they want to sell it, and it's a great deal. It's a no-brainer for what they want for it. But they said, you have to close by the end of the month. So, we've got a week to close this thing. And I didn't really know how I was going to do it. I thought to go to a hard money lender. That's the only person I knew that might fund it that quickly. So I tried that, and they were actually out of town. So they weren't going to be back until the next week. So Colin actually went and he cashed out his IRA, and he put like a priority on, I don't know exactly all the details. You have to like send something through the mail. He put priority shipping on it and got the money that day. Wow. $112,000 to close on it. And we went 50-50 on that. So I know not a lot of people would have kept me in on that deal 50-50 after, because I definitely couldn't have done it without him. And he probably could have done it without me, even though it was my lead. So that was the first deal we actually did together. And, it it was a great deal. And the funny thing is, the same thing kind of happened a couple weeks later. I had another appointment for a sixplex. And of course, the first person I'm going to call is him. And, we went there, ended up buying that one as well. And, because of his generosity and the things he's done, I've given him quite a few very, very good deals. And he's pretty much always the first person I call when I come across something.
Wow. So tell me now, though, a little more about this, how your marketing has grown and what you're doing now for marketing.
Yeah. So as far as marketing goes, I'm not doing anything special. I have somebody that makes cold calls for me. That's more on the single family side. Usually when it comes to multifamily, I'll make the calls myself. A lot of owners of multifamily are just a little bit more sophisticated. They want to talk to, the person that's actually buying the property. And then I'm also sending out some mail, and I've had really good success with low quantities of mail. And I think a big part of it is just sending out an authentic message and being a little bit creative with what I'm sending out. And it's a subtle difference between using a company's pre-written letter versus just typing something out, being really authentic, telling them a little bit about yourself. I know people even include a picture of themselves, and just kind of making that connection and really just hoping to have a conversation with them and see where it goes from there.
Yeah. I'm sure that's great advice, because most people are being bombarded with mail for real estate right now, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they are. And I'm sure 5 or 10 of those pieces of mail are the exact same thing from different people. So if you can make it stand out a little bit, you can at least get your foot in the door. And that's all you're trying to do when you're marketing.
What's the largest property in the 1.3 million portfolio?
We just closed on 10 units. So there's 2 sixplexes in there in the whole portfolio. So we got the one appraised at 425,000, the one we just bought a couple weeks ago.
Good for you. Wow.
Thanks.
Well, that's awesome, Logan. And but tell me what's been the hardest part of this process, the syndication process for you, or getting into large multifamily like this?
I think a hard part is just getting people to take you seriously when you're young. And I think to overcome that, it's just a lot of persistence and showing them a little bit of a track record. Once you've been able to do, even if you've only done one deal, that's a huge difference from going in and telling a broker that sources a lot of deals, like, hey, I'm looking to get into my first investment, versus saying, hey, I'm looking to get into my next investment. I think that's a huge difference.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. And tell me, like through that transition, what was like the biggest aha moment for you?
As far as what transition?
Yeah, I was just saying, like, going from no deals to, no track record to all of a sudden you have a deal, like, to, okay, now I've got this. Was it just the first deal? It's like, okay, that just helped you to get so much traction, or was it, the next deal, or could you tell a big difference?
Yeah, I think everything just starts building off each other. And I think, even once you get your first deal, it's such a confidence boost that when I'm talking to a seller now, I know what the process looks like. I know I can get my financing approved. I know once we get it under contract, exactly what I'm doing, what due diligence looks like. And it probably more than anything, the confidence helps you get more deals.
No doubt. So Logan, how do you prepare for this potential downturn that everybody's talking about?
For me, it's just, having as much cash on hand as I can and long-term financing. And really, I'm going to keep my transactional business going, my wholesaling and flipping, and keeping high cash reserves in that business. just in case I need to handle any repairs or anything. I don't think there's going to be there's never any lack of deals. It's just a matter of, as far as the wholesaling flipping, there's no lack of deals. It's just a matter of, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought.
Your marketing or a matter of finding the deals?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a matter of getting them at a better discount than you would before.
Wow. So what about, are any specific ways you are finding investors or even looking for investors right now?
I've kind of just been able to find people organically who they're interested in what I'm doing. And when they want to know more about the business, I just kind of tell them, if the conversation leads in that direction, I just tell them that I have some investors that are funding some fix and flips. And if they're interested, they usually want to talk about it more. And I just tell them what kind of returns my investors are getting, and they're usually happy to continue that conversation. And because typically it's a lot higher than they're getting in the stock market, or, sometimes they just have money sitting there in a bank account making 2%.
And what's been the number one thing that's contributed to your success? I know you mentioned earlier, like it took persistence, but anything else that's like stood out to you, like to make it?
I would say the biggest thing for me is just self-education. I've just made a habit of learning all the time. I'm always listening to a book in the car or a podcast. I don't really watch Netflix or anything. My leisurely time is I'll watch a real estate show or a podcast about, even if it's not related to exactly what I'm doing, it's still very interesting to me how there's just so many strategies that people are able to be successful in real estate. So I think the education and then actually acting on it is the key, has been the key to success for me, at least.
And how do you like to give back?
I really like teaching newer investors. I love answering questions and helping out newer investors, because there's so much you don't know when you get started. So I understand there's always some knowledge gaps, and when you can just ask somebody that's done it and that's been there, it's great to be able to help them.
Logan, I just congratulate you for just making it happen, taking the plunge and just jumping in. I mean, ultimately, and you had some plans behind it. You had 6 months of, you knew you had some income, and I wish I had done it. I wish I had done it when I was your age. And so I just my hat's off to you for making it happen, and even finding a mentor or adding the value like you did. I think you went about it a very good way, and had somebody that was a little bit ahead of you at least at that time. But Logan, tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Yeah, probably the easiest way is just shoot me a text and we can figure out a time to talk. The best number to reach me at is 402-250-8357. And yeah, I'll be happy to schedule a call with anyone.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.